Good afternoon, everyone. We are just kicking off our webinar session and we'll give people maybe 30 more seconds to join before we actually start for real. Hope everyone's got a cuppa to hand. And this is going to be a nice and long session. We've just hit 1 p.m. So I think we can kick things off. So hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to the Atlassian in Scotland 2021 webinar series. We have some exciting talks in store for you. But before we kick off, just a bit of housekeeping first. So we're going to have a live Q&A running throughout the session, and you will probably see a Q&A box appear on the right-hand side of your screen. So feel free to pop any questions into that Q&A, and if you're lucky, one of our eager team members might answer this as we go. But if they don't you worry, because we'll be going over any remaining questions at the end, and if for any reasons, like we run out of time, we don't get the chance to address your question, we will cover them offline, and after the webinar, we'll share the results from the Q&A. We will also have a handful of quick polls running throughout the session for you to do, and we'll be sharing our findings from these after the webinar. So without further ado, let's kick things off. And just to start, it's poll time. So to kick things off, it will be really interesting to see where everyone is on the cloud migration journey. You should see a poll popping up on your screen right now. So we have a poll to find out just that. Are you in the research and assessment stage? Are you preparing to migrate? Are you ready to migrate? Are you already actively migrating, or are you fully migrated? We'll give everyone maybe another 10, 15 seconds to complete the poll. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll just push ahead. Now allow me to introduce today's speakers. Today we'll be hosting Mert Unsal, solution engineer from Atlassian, who will give us the reasons to believe in cloud, and he'll be explaining the value of Atlassian Cloud and all the benefits that cloud migration could bring to your company. Our second talk will be from myself, head of operations at Verve Consulting. I will be taking us through Verve's own journey to cloud and explaining how we are managing the move, and giving you some insight into what your migration process could be like. Once again, a big thank you goes out to Atlassian, our event partner, for this webinar series. Thanks, guys, for joining forces with us. And here's just a very quick bit about ourselves. You might or might not know, but we are an Atlassian solution partner, providing solutions that empower teams to work effectively together. So our mission is to inspire effective teamwork. And we are, in fact, the only Atlassian partner based in Scotland, and we are the #1 gold partner in the UK. So that's us. And because we've not had enough polls yet, here's time for the second poll. So before our first talk from Mert, we have another poll to find out what excites you most about moving to the Atlassian Cloud. Is it increased speed? Is it reduced admin costs? Is it data safeguarding? Is it maybe increased collaboration and innovation? Or is it staying up to date with the new and latest features and versions? Or finally, is it just the improved look and feel on cloud? Let's give everyone maybe 10 more seconds to answer. All right, and now without further ado, we're going to switch over to Mert, who is going to talk us through the reasons to believe in cloud. So over to you, Mert.
All right, thank you so much. So let me share my screen quickly. And should be good now. Hi, everyone. This is Mert. I'm one of the solutions engineers at Atlassian. I hope you can see my screen now. So yeah, as Kris mentioned, today I'll be trying to cover why cloud, why there's a tendency to go to cloud, why this could be a right move, right time for you to think about your organization to go to cloud. We have only limited time and too many important topics to cover, so we'll just dive into bits right away. Starting with, Atlassian believes that cloud is our future. And we are not alone in this belief that Gartner is also saying that 80% of enterprise workload will shift to the cloud by 2025. So this is by all means, with this acceleration and the trend, we want to make sure our customers are meeting all the requirements in our cloud products. So today, that's why I will try to bring the reasons behind this tendency, bring the reasons in our promise how we can satisfy you in the Atlassian Cloud tool stack. But with a little bit of disclaimer, starting with, Atlassian offers you at the moment both on-prem and cloud solutions. So by all means, we will continue to invest in the most innovative solutions for both of our solutions and deployments going forward. But in the nature of these deployment differences, there will be a feature and even more extensive differences going further with cloud. So today is focusing on all these, and there will be some, maybe all reasons fitting your use case, your organization, maybe benefiting more in the journey of cloud migration. So overall, in cloud movement, beyond Atlassian, let's start with in general cloud mentality and a SaaS approach. If we generalize things, we see an average response on these reasons. To start with, the most important one, maybe the scalability. Scalability is super important because we are here to make business, make money, right? We want to grow in terms of business, maybe double with our services and product use. But this sounds good, but if we don't have the technology to support that use case, we may have problems going forward with major incidents, bad customer experience, bad reputations, or internally stressed out team members. So with on-prem installations, we know that the resources are finite, and this would be either vertically or horizontally keeping you restricted with the scalability aspect. But in cloud, the perspective is quite different because cloud provider is already there with all these resources available for your use with financially backed SLAs and everything optimized with your kind of use case. Not for only you, but for many enterprises with scale. Going forward with the speed and performance, this can sound very subjective to you, but when we talk about performance, we like to tie it to versioning, upgrades, indexing, as well as storage aspect. So when we analyze our customer domain, we've seen most of our customers are not really updating their version of on-prem installation, which eventually and inevitably causing some performance issues. But in cloud, it's not the case because it's just one version, always up to date with most beautiful features and security patches. So you don't really have to worry about versioning or indexing. With the unlimited storage options available in cloud, you don't have to worry about that as well if you're having degraded performance. But there are also certain financially backed SLAs tying this performance and the speed increase in the cloud performance. Team productivity is taking place, especially in the last 2 years with the COVID times. I'm sure you can relate to this one. So increasing trend to go to remote working, we can see productivity is, we're trying to find more productive ways to build teamwork and especially extend it to a certain, even more going forward. So according to a survey, Microsoft Office 365 conducted, 70% of their customer base is happy with the cloud, and they've seen increase in the productivity. And standard survey last year is also approving this one with a similar number of, similar increase in the percentage. So I will come back to team productivity from Atlassian perspective later on in this presentation. But with the other integrations, the other tools you've been using in the cloud environment, you can also experience increase in the team productivity with the reduce of the context switch and various options in between those integrations. And lastly, maybe most important for some of you, increasing the profits and then lowering the costs. So I have an image for this one, because to explain this one, I need to have this example. If you directly compare a cloud SaaS-based solution subscription cost to an on-prem subscription cost, you will be misled for sure. What we generalize and on average, we see a hidden cost behind an on-premise installation that you've been spending time as well as cost with this iceberg. So you'll be dealing with performance, upgrades, hosting, and keeping that data secure and with all the policies, privacy policies implemented with the maintenance, and many more items will be hidden costs to maintain a proper on-prem installation. And apart from the on-prem solution, you can have a cloud subscription where Atlassian or any other cloud provider can maintain all this infrastructure for you. And then you can reduce the cost over there, but maybe there will be a little bit more for the subscription. So for your real calculation, for your real own use case, I suggest you to go through our Atlassian website and start assessing your own use case and get real numbers to see a realistic comparison. So in general, these are the reasons when we come up, when we talk to customers. And we know time is money, especially for business. And this is exactly what we hear from one of our customers, Redfin, telling us improving the team efficiency directly to the bottom line. And this is just one example. And there is another case study we've done with Lucid Motors, and they're enjoying the financially backed guaranteed uptime with Atlassian Cloud right now with these products. So for many other customer use cases and their details, their journey to cloud, their concerns, how they handle those, you can visit atlassian.com/customers webpage. Let's continue with Atlassian's Promise, because so far it was a generic idea about cloud, some reasons, maybe reasonings, but how do we operate these within Atlassian? How do we tie those to specific features? What are our investments and roadmap items is going to bring us to this part of the presentation. So it's no surprise that Atlassian is investing more and more in cloud because of our belief, but also we do that in innovating the teams as well as the administrators, so into categories. So I will be telling you the innovations we've done in the team level, team scope. So, that will include some use cases, some specific features, as well as in the end, we will dive into administrative side of the things with compliance, security, storage, and more. So to start with extensibility. By meaning this is actually, we know our customers are already using cloud for some extent. We know we have to rely on some cloud providers because they only operate in cloud. And we know some products are available and actually better in cloud. So going to cloud with Atlassian will enable you to have even better integrations in between these tools. You will reduce the context switch and enjoy the extended version of these integrations. One example would be Slack. So you have Slack integration, for example, in on-prem as well, but the additional items are available in cloud so that you don't have to really switch between tools, but you can take actions and select directly. So you can enjoy some extended versions of cloud native integrations and reduce context switching. There are some examples for DevOps triggers. And also in Atlassian tool stack, having everything in one single deployment method, let's say cloud, is also going to give you a unique experience with less context switching and all the native integrations in between because it's easier. Another example would be there are some cloud-only features available in Atlassian Cloud as well. I don't have an image for that, and I'm sorry for it, but we can talk about next-gen projects for this. I'm sure you've heard about it. It's now called as team-managed projects for teams who doesn't really require advanced setup, heavy customized environment, but ready to go and use something from day one. So with next-gen projects, especially for non-IT teams, we've noticed that it's helping with the templates, with the automations, with the workflows we've been bringing to them is actually sufficient enough. So now you can just split into team managed projects and company managed projects, and then just go for very productive ways and reduce your time to implement all those customizations. Another productivity item would be our recent investment in machine learning algorithms. So this is an initiative in cloud, and we recently conducted a research what ways we can use it. And there is only one way now we could implement, but there will be more and more. So in the middle, you can see in the Confluence part of the thing, the page, you can see two different people. If they're searching for exactly the same keyword roadmap, they might be seeing different results. So this machine learning algorithm will be enabling you to have personalized predictive experience based on your recent activities towards all your cloud environment or your search results, so that it will be tailored in a very personalized ways. And lastly, maybe to give you an idea about data and insight, again, for this, Jira or Atlassian Cloud, let's say in general, is giving you already maybe enough of data analytics or reporting. But for this, I just wanted to add this in this slide because we have recently acquired a cloud-based solution, Chart.io. That's a business intelligence system, so that it's not surprised that we will be having more and more better options for data and insights in Atlassian Cloud tool stack for even more customized dashboards, reportings for your Atlassian Cloud tool stack or your third-party tools. Let's continue. So this was the team side of the innovations I was trying to highlight, but of course there are way more than these. But I think this is the important piece of the cloud reasons and the value, the administration part. So these categories will be changing when you are considering to go to cloud. So the governance and controls and the user scale, performance, reliability items, security, compliance, and then we have to talk about the add-ons. These individual items are really playing a good role to assess your successful migration journey. This might be directing you to an easy adaptation, but as well as a very blocker-wise, blocking way migration as well. So which will eventually highlight a realistic timeline for your migration. Governance and controls it's a quite different experience in cloud. So at the moment, I mean, in general, in cloud, the SaaS environment, now you don't have server database. So the hosting, security, and compliance will be based on the provider itself. So you will rely on those with agreements, and then you will just focus on your business. You will focus on your team productivity and going forward. The controls and the admin panel also will change, of course, because you have less administration work at the moment with cloud now. That doesn't mean that you don't have any control in cloud. Of course you do. But this will be less administrative. But when you require some more, you will always have support teams dedicated to your subscription plan. So you can 24/7 reach out to Atlassian support, get your help, go any direction with your environment with less burden, less administrative tasks. Global scale is very important because this is our confidence level, I can say. At the moment, Atlassian Cloud lets you have 20K users per instance. So within one instance, you can have up to 20K, and we are agreeing that we will be performing as best as we do for one user. But if you think this is not enough for you, if you have more and more users, which I understand, then enterprise plan has a little bit different infrastructure than the other plans, which allows you to have unlimited instances. So you can pool as many as instances with up to 20K and have kind of unlimited user limit. But by the time next year, we are aiming to hit the target to 35K per instance. And this is just one example that we heavily invest in cloud. We see a very good future in cloud. So it's now under test. Whenever we feel like we're comfortable with the performance and everything in the background, we will be ready to release GA it for everybody for 35K. And here, let's talk about some reliability and performance from Atlassian's perspective. So how does it go in Atlassian side is with premium plan, we have a financially backed uptime with 99.9%. And similarly, but a little bit higher with enterprise plan, it's 99.95% financially backed uptime, SLA. That means you don't have to worry about downtime. So we agree with these financially backed uptimes. Let's just imagine if we cannot succeed this numbers, you will be service credited. So you don't in any case, you don't have to worry about it. So you will be in win-win situation. And yeah, this is very important, very confident offer that we do with our cloud tool stack. I have mentioned about the support offering, but again, there will be a little bit differences between subscription plans and the SLAs we offer for the support plans. So for those details, you can always go to our website and check what's included in what plan kind of things. But even in the free plan, you are tied to have support for any cloud environment in Atlassian. For performance, we do run continuous performance checks for our cloud environment, of course, with the user tiers increasing, and for your own even use case with the specific user tier. But in general, in our cloud environment, we have implemented single page application framework recently. That's what I wanted to pick from all the performance upgrades. But this one, we have noticed a very good speed up in the load times, for example. And this is just the one innovation. So these things, these upgrades, these improvements are happening without even your notice in cloud. You don't have to do anything. It will be just one version, one updated, one updated cloud environment for all of you, for all your use cases. This is the part where we need to spend some time, but maybe we don't have that in this place, but I wanted to highlight some items before I switch to the other slide. I think it's the most important piece to build trust between a cloud provider and your business. It lies to security and compliance. For those, we have our Atlassian Trust page, which includes all this is documented, all the compliances, all the regulations and privacy notes enabled and published in public way in our Atlassian Trust site. But the highlights would be Atlassian Cloud's already providing you data encryption in transit and at rest. And maybe you followed, but data residency is now an option in Atlassian Cloud. And we are heavily investing in that. So at the moment, it's US and Europe. But going forward, for example, next year, UK will be an option for data residency. And going forward, it will be Canada, Japan, more and more. With demand, with the increasing user and this trend, we will be investing more and more for data residency. Here, I also would like to highlight Atlassian Access. You may not be familiar with this, but it's our secure hub for user management. There are certain ways you may be dealing with users on-prem at the moment, but Atlassian Access will be the centralized user management to provide you single sign-on, two-factor authentication, automated user provisioning or deprovisioning, and as well as audit logs. So everything with the user security will be tied to Atlassian Access, and it will be run towards all your Atlassian Cloud products. It doesn't have to be on Jira Cloud, but it's all Atlassian Cloud. So it's a centralized hub for your security additional security items for your users. The details of SOC 2, SOC 3, GDPR, and our security questionnaire, because we already have one available in public page. For those, you can, again, go to Atlassian Trust page. I'm sure you will have all the answers, but if not, we're here to answer any questions or get back to you in an email for your concerns later on. Lastly, and I hope, lastly, I will talk about apps very quickly, because we know you may be partnering with some add-ons to even extend your current usage on-prem, or you want to do it in cloud as well. So there are some add-ons in the marketplace you may be using. So there are innovations and investments in this as well. What we've been doing in the research, that we found that 77 of those add-ons are already available in cloud. So for your journey from on-prem to cloud, we are investing more and partnering with those vendors to make this migration smoother. So application availability and readiness is number one. We spend so much time and money at the moment with the vendors, as well as the support for migration of these add-ons are number two item in our list. So there will be investments and improvements in our tool, for migration tool, that you can maybe easily bring the data you have in on-prem tools to cloud environments. So we're also partnering with the vendors to make it a smoother experience for you. You may be wondering the security portion of add-ons in cloud as well. That's why I would like to introduce you Cloud Fortified App Program, where we ensure enterprise-grade security, reliability, and support for those add-ons. We have 3 layers at the moment for add-on security. So if you go to Cloud Marketplace, you can see those labels attached to the add-ons. So if you see Cloud Fortified App, you can make sure we have run an assessment, security assessment with that, and they have to comply with it. And lastly, Atlassian introduced Forge infrastructure framework so that our customers or vendors can easily build custom add-ons, applications for their own cloud environments. So Forge will be there for your any imagination if you can go for scripting ways and build a custom app for yourself. So that's also a very good investment we've been doing lately, and it's now available for anyone. And so these were the bits I would love to share with you. These are the important items you need to assess internally for your internal teams, product administrators, so that you can see maybe the reasons are fitting the same way for you, so that we can start the journey together to cloud. There are different support ways we will be walking with you through this journey as Atlassian, as solution partners. We will be having, you will be having support from us with the assessment through the successful migration ends. So thank you for listening. I think Kris will hand over now from here. Thank you all.
Thanks, Mert. That's fantastic, much appreciated. So Atlassian strategy for cloud is really looking exciting, and we just can't wait to see what the next couple of years will bring for you. So we'll keep our eyes peeled. Now, before we move on to my presentation, I have hopefully just the very last poll for you to do. So can you tell us what are the main challenges you have faced so far in your journey to the cloud? Is it to do with management team buy-in? Is it to do with budget restraints? Maybe resource issues? Maybe it's the lack of information and support. Maybe you have security concerns, or maybe there's a feature availability disparity between server and cloud. Let us know in the poll. We'll give everyone maybe 10-15 seconds to answer. Okie doke, and it's my turn now. So my name is Kris. I'm head of operations at New Verve Consulting, and today I'm going to take you through our own experience of migrating to cloud and some of the challenges that we have faced. So, for a bit of a recap, unless you've been living under a rock, which, to be fair, is actually pretty likely during COVID, you've probably been aware that in October 2020, Atlassian announced changes to server and BC offerings. So let's have a quick reminder of what that actually means, particularly because February 2022 is just around the corner. So in February 2021, Atlassian ended the sale of new licenses for server. And in February 2022, we'll see the end of user tier upgrades and downgrades for existing server licenses. Now, in 2023, we'll see the end of sales for new marketplace app licenses on server. And finally, in 2024, server will be out of support, aka it's the end of server. Now, these two pictures are probably a good indication of how this news was initially received. Opinions were divided. And we certainly thought that ourselves, we were in a good place as an Atlassian partner. But as always, the truth was somewhere in the middle. And in hindsight, what we probably did is we started on that right-hand side, and then we moved towards the left-hand side, and now we're making our way back to the right-hand side. So how do we go from being scared to being all smug? What we're going to do is we're first going to look at 3 different perspectives on migration, and this will help us prepare for the actual migration journey. And then we're going to look at how we at New Verve have made this journey ourselves so that in future we can make it together. So let's have a look at migration as a project first, because migration means change. So how do we manage this change? What do we need to know in order to set up our migration project for success? Here's some areas of interest that we discovered on our journey, which will ultimately help you prepare your business case for migration to cloud. And it's a long list, and we want to emphasize that you really need to know these things across the board. So both for your source environment, but also for your target environment, so that you can make an informed decision about migration. And of course, as an Atlassian partner, we're here to help take away that burden of discovery. So let's say we are a server customer who's embarking on this migration project. And we already know our source environment, but what's our target? Where do we go from here? Now, within the Atlassian ecosystem, we have 3 options, and each of these options will be suited to different sets of needs. The most obvious difference is CapEx versus OpEx in DC and cloud, respectively. But we're not really going to talk about that here, because if you're considering cloud migration already, then likely this is your primary motivation. So instead, we're going to pick out some examples that are of particular interest to us, or were of particular interest to us when we started this journey. So firstly, let's take a look at data center. Obviously, data center is self-managed, but it also has a high entry cost. We're talking, licenses or subscriptions starting at 500 users. It is scalable, and it gives us the confidence that we can centralize our data and secure it behind the firewall. However, the operational burden of that falls on us. It does also come with out-of-the-box support for extended user directories, external user directories, sorry. And it also has 2 APIs, so both Java and REST APIs, to help customize the platform. Secondly, let's have a look at the other end of the scale, so the cloud, which obviously has a low entry cost. You can start free for nothing. However, there are certain things, because it is a managed infrastructure, there are certain things you have to contend with. There are storage quotas, although presently they're not enforced. The data in cloud is distributed. So although, as Mert mentioned, there is the ability to pin data to a specific region, every vendor of every app manages that in their own way. There are additional features such as an IP allow list, which allows you to simulate some of the firewalling features, as well as Atlassian Access for external user directories using SAML or SCIM, but these are paid features that you have to pay a little bit extra to get them. And finally, in cloud, there is only a REST API. There is no Java API, so you have to adapt to a different development model if you want to customize the platform. And finally, the hybrid, which is a bit of the best of both worlds, you could argue. It is a cross-platform solution in the sense that it spans both server or data center and cloud. It integrates quite well between the two using application links between the Atlassian applications. It enables you to have a mixed feature set. And probably the best thing about hybrid is that it can be transitional or perpetual. So if you're just moving from server to cloud, and you need to give yourself a little bit more time to do your research and to slowly migrate to cloud, this can be your transitional option from server to cloud. However, you can also run a purely mixed workload which shares data center and cloud in perpetuity. So it gives you that option as well. Now, let's talk about migration as a service, because it is ultimately a service that we provide to our customers. And there's this concept in economics called the pyramid of expectation, which is a way of assessing performance against customer expectation. So it obviously starts at the bottom where we have customer sacrifice, which means that we did not really deliver on our promise to the customer. And next we have customer satisfaction. So that's when we delivered on the promise, but it really is a precarious position to be in because we're only just good enough. And further up, we have customer surprise. That's where we've delivered above and beyond. So we're actually delighting the customer. And finally, if our service really is top notch, then we have customer suspense, which actually means that the customer is expecting to be delighted and they are looking forward to being delighted. They cannot wait to see what we have in store for them. So obviously, we want to be as high as possible on this pyramid. But who are we actually trying to delight here? So who are the customers in this scenario? And obviously, the answer is they're users. They're the product users. And the users, they might have some obvious expectations like having a realistic timeline or a clear migration plan, etc. But there are also requirements which follow directly from that migration project checklist that we discussed earlier. And we've picked some of these out here for you. And there are things to consider here like, migration paths, which go back to vendor support. What is the vendor support? Cloud readiness. Is this the right place and time to do it? Quick wins. What can we do now? Staging environment, because testing. Feature parity. Will users use functionality when they go to cloud? User training. How do we onboard them onto the new platform? And then things like data privacy and standards compliance. We have GDPR. We might be ISO certified. We might be following ITIL. All of these considerations we have to take into account when we're preparing that service for our customers. So let's say we've done our research now and we know where we want to go, but how do we get there? Well, the answer is talk to us because we are a migration service provider. This is what we do. We help customers answer the question of how to get from server to cloud. But let's have a quick look at some examples to illustrate what exactly is possible. And again, we're going to first look at two extremes and then a kind of middle of the road approach. So we're going to start with migration by product. And this is the big bang approach. It's invariably complex because it is cross-functional. And this is where we see companies resorting to using things like site export and import, big bang, lift and shift. Now let's look at migration by project or by space if you're using Confluence, which is the other end of the scale. And this is simple. You can just achieve that by a simple, CSV export and some manual configuration. So it's simple. However, it's siloed and it's not very repeatable. It's not very scalable. And finally, let's look at migration by team. And what we mean here by team is really a business unit or a business function. And this is the best example of a scalable iterative approach, because as long as our team follows best practice and has a streamlined configuration across all of its projects, then you can migrate that team in one fell swoop. And it's here where a migration tool like the Cloud Migration Assistant really shines. And finally, let's talk about migration as an attitude. And by attitude here, we really mean something like orientation, mentality, determination, because ultimately it's a strong determinant of our success on the journey to migrate. Cloud migration is a type of transformation, and as with digital transformation, it favors a forward-thinking attitude. And we know that cloud is the future. It's a worldwide trend, and the vast majority of Atlassian's R&D investment is in cloud. You've seen the statistics shared by Mert earlier. So how do we future-proof our organization? Well, we do it by adopting a cloud-first strategy and ensuring that our server-based solutions are as cross-platform as possible. So with all that in mind, what does this mean in practice? Let's have a look at how new Verve is meeting this migration challenge. And I say this in the present tense because we're still very much on that journey. Now, Amazon has a very useful white paper on migration strategies, which is based on previous work by Gartner. And the key takeaway here is that you may need to consider each of these strategies for every Atlassian-related product that you host. So what we're going to do next is outline where we as New Verve began our journey, where we're headed, and which of these strategies we have picked for each major sort of business critical product. And this will cover both Atlassian products and some business critical marketplace apps. So where did we come from? So this was our starting point. Each of these teams, because remember we're looking at teams, each of these teams or functions use a subset of our Atlassian products. You can probably recognize some of these logos. So let's just very quickly go through them. So we have sales with Jira Software and Confluence, marketing, ditto, support, that's Jira Service Management, obviously, with Confluence for knowledge base, with Insight for asset management, and with EasyBI for reporting. Then we have operations, again with Jira Software, Confluence, Insight, and EasyBI. We have products, again Jira Software and Confluence, but now we're bringing in the dev tools, so Bitbucket and Bamboo. Solutions, who use Jira Core, Jira Software, Confluence, Bitbucket, and EasyBI. And everyone in the business uses Crowd for user management, Tempo for time management, and Refined for theming. So this is where we started off, and where did we want to end up? And this picture is quite similar, but there are some subtle changes. And we need to remember that although we have decided to migrate by team, each of these products will have its own migration path. And you might, at this point, argue that this maybe adds some unnecessary complexity. But remember, this isn't about the products, but about the users, because it's the team who is our customer, and each team will have different requirements. So to complete this picture, let's take a look at the migration path for each product. I apologize, but I seem to have zoomed in. Let me just zoom out. So let's take a look at the migration path for each product. So how are we getting from our source to our target? And first up is Jira Core Server. Now we know that Jira Core is now Jira Work Management, but it's important to make that distinction, we think, because Jira Work Management in Cloud really brings in some additional exciting features with it. So how do we move from Jira Core Server to Jira Work Management in Cloud? Well, the strategy here seems to be replatforming, because although the feature parity is there, there are these additional features in Jira Work Management Cloud which might just require us to do a little bit more tinkering before you get things to the point that we want them in. So this is a replatform, and luckily for us, the Jira Cloud Migration Assistant app by Atlassian allows us to execute this migration very straightforwardly. So the path for us is clear here. Now, second up, we have Jira Software. And with this product, we're probably as close as we can get to a true lift and shift. So this is a rehost. And that's because the feature parity for Jira Software is excellent between server and cloud. And again, we have the Jira Cloud Migration Assistant to help us move. So it's a straightforward rehost. Next, we have Jira Service Management. And this is where things start getting a little bit tricky because Jira Cloud Migration Assistant does not support Jira Service Management yet. So unfortunately, we'll have to pretty much configure our target project or projects in Jira Service Management Cloud pretty much from scratch. However, luckily for us, there are some other ways in which we can at least move the issue data across. And in this example, we're using a tool called Exalate, which is an issue synchronization app on the marketplace between server and cloud. Next, we have Confluence. And like with Jira Software, it has its own migration assistant, and it's a fairly straightforward rehost. It really is pretty much a lift and shift. And now we're getting to DevTools, where things are getting a little bit hairy again. And that's because the migration assistant for Bitbucket isn't quite there yet. It is in beta, so it's available for testing, but is not yet quite production ready. Luckily, though, we can still migrate to cloud by at least importing our Git repositories directly from Bitbucket server into Bitbucket Cloud. So with a little bit of tinkering, we probably will be good to go. And that means that this is basically a replatform strategy. Now, Bamboo, which is a build tool, is a different story because there is no direct equivalent in cloud for Bamboo. However, all is not lost because Bitbucket Cloud has a CI/CD feature called pipelines. So we could, in theory, refactor our Bamboo-based build pipeline into Bitbucket pipelines and retire Bamboo entirely. But this is a manual process and it's going to be hard work. And finally, Crowd, which connects to our external user directory for things like SAML single sign-on. Now, the only option available for that in Cloud at the moment is Atlassian Access. And on top of that, we'll have to manually connect it with our directory service. It's also worth noting that Access only supports Cloud applications. So we're still going to have to keep Crowd around until we've actually migrated completely. So when we're running hybrid, we have Crowd on one side, Access on the other. So that's the migration paths for the Atlassian applications covered. Now let's take a quick look at some of our business critical marketplace apps. And we'll start with Tempo. We actually use 3 different Tempo apps for both time and budget management. We use Tempo Timesheets, Planner, and Budgets. And the strategy we've chosen for Tempo currently is to retain it on server, at least until server is out of support. And there are 2 main reasons for that. The first one is that the migration path for Tempo Timesheets, at least, isn't yet fully featured. There are certain things, certain changes that you have to implement manually, and we'd rather not do that if we don't have to. And secondly, Tempo Budgets actually has no direct equivalent on Cloud. So we would have to move to another solution and retire Budgets completely. For that reason, we will continue using these apps on server. And for any projects that we migrate to Cloud, we're going to use that app called Xlate Jira Issue Sync to synchronize tickets from Cloud into server so that we can report on them in server in a consolidated manner. So it's a workaround for the time being. The next app is EasyBI for Jira, which is a business intelligence and reporting app. And really here, our strategy is also to retain, with a similar justification to Tempo. EasyBI actually does provide a full database migrator to make the migration job easier. So we don't have concerns there. But at the moment, we'd rather not split our reporting solution across server and cloud. We'd rather have consolidated reporting on one side. And we've chosen server to be that side for the time being. Again, with the Xlate app synchronizing our cloud projects into server. Thirdly, Refined, which we use for theming and styling. Unfortunately, although Refined is available in cloud, it really requires a complete rebuild. So the solution is not cross-compatible between server and cloud. And although we do want to move to Refined in cloud in future, currently this is on our long-term roadmap as it will require a lot of refactoring, manual refactoring of that. And finally, Insight, which we use for asset management. And it's a bit of a mixed strategy with Insight because although it is integrated into Jira Service Management on cloud, at least on the premium version, we actually have to, well, we wanted to split off the CRM portion of it and start using our own Crumbs CRM app, which is available on the marketplace, and then retain Insight purely for actual asset management, software hardware asset management. So it's a mixed strategy between replatforming onto Insight Cloud, but purely for asset management, and then moving on to Crumbs for CRM. And the migration for these is manual. For Crumbs, we just have to manually create the customer records that we wanted to store in it. And for Insight, the migration process between server and cloud is still fairly manual. It involves manually importing and exporting the object schema. And that's really it. So finally, now that we've covered all our business critical products and the migration path for each, let's just take a quick final look at where we are just now. Because our journey, as I mentioned, is still far from over. So you'll see from this diagram that our production server side is still as busy as ever. No products have been retired yet. However, given the low complexity, we have already migrated our sales and marketing teams over to cloud. And we are currently staging our migration for the support and product teams. And we expect to be running in hybrid mode for at least the next few months, if not until server is officially fully retired. And in that time, we will be continually test driving and basically staging new and updated migration paths until they provide us with enough confidence to move ahead with all of our remaining products. So that's it from me. I hope that has given you some idea of what a migration process might look like for you, especially if your setup is similar. If you have any questions or if you'd like to discuss your migration strategy or challenges, please get in touch with us, with the new Verve team. If you're keen to get involved in one of our future events on the migration side of things, please reach out to us. And now it's time for question time. So I haven't actually been keeping an eye on the Q&A, but hopefully we have some exciting questions on there. I'm just going to take a quick peek now. And we have one question from an anonymous user. Are there any advantages to holding off migrating until migration paths are smoother for apps and Jira Service Management? Excellent question. I think I can offer my own perspective, but I will welcome Mert to chip in here as well. What I would say is that it really depends on your business requirements. You know, if the business can tolerate that sort of delay, then there's nothing stopping you from remaining on server. However, server is going away, and the risk of staying on server is that you might become entrenched on that platform and find it more difficult to migrate nearer the time where the time for server to come off support is really coming nearer and nearer. So my advice would be migrate early. Migrate early. But Mert, do you want to chip in here as well?
Yeah, sure. So for apps piece, I would say an assessment should be run right away, because without assessing those individual apps and their use cases and knowing what we're missing, what we're expecting, we cannot really have a timeline. So if not now, we should know when, right? So I think with the cloud trial, because we have a generous trial, you should be starting to assess your environment, getting real bits of cloud, because that adaptation also takes time. So I guess an assess phase could take as long as you feel comfortable with cloud. So that's no burden and no, nothing wrong on that side. But I think the assess at least should start as soon as possible. There's no disadvantage. You can stay in data center deployment as long as you want, because it's gonna go there with new features and stuff. So it will stay there. But if you have a cloud mentality, if you foresee there will be a time you will be heading to cloud, I think, yeah, you should be at least assessing with apps, add-ons. Talk to us about your use cases. Maybe we will be offering you an alternative apps. And sometimes we're foreseeing this add-on you don't need in cloud anymore, because the existing functionality in cloud may be replacing it already. So it's very particular to your use case, and it all starts with a cloud trial and an assessment.
Yep, 100%. Fully agree. Do we have any more questions on the Q&A? We have about 8 minutes left in this webinar, so very much encourage people to pop some questions into the Q&A. We're here to answer them, so don't be shy. No other questions. Oh, we've got a question coming in just now. Are there any advantages to holding off migrating? Oh, sorry, that's the previous question. I'll read out the new one now. So how is Atlassian planning to support vendors to create apps for cloud? What should we expect from the marketplace in the new year? I think Mert, that is directly for you.
Yes. Okay. So for add-ons, what you can expect from vendor side, we've been doing some programs. So this cloud fortified add-on program will be adapted more and more with the vendors, we hope, and probably we will even force them to go to secure ways so that they can deploy those add-ons in the cloud. So you can make sure there will be improvements in the security of add-ons going forward. With the Forge and this new cloud infrastructure, so that you can create your own custom add-ons, it's already there actually, but it's very recent innovation that we've brought. I'm sure there will be some hiccups But for those, again, you can try and experience by your own use case. Maybe you will eliminate some of the add-ons from the marketplace you were heavily investing. That's another thing. So where was the question? Oh, okay. Another thing would be a migration. Sorry. So now we're kind of eliminating the old framework. The add-ons are placed in the marketplace and switching to Forge, the existing add-ons I'm talking about. So we're kind of migrating them into Forge so that we can provide also data residency for add-ons. That's a very good investment. We're heavily working with partners. So at the moment, data residency doesn't really cover external add-ons, but it will be coming. Maybe not next year, but in a 2 years timeline, we will be also supporting that. That's very charming. So yeah, pretty much these.
Awesome, appreciate that. 3 more questions came in, so let's just go through them quickly. Is there any way to ensure users are not overwhelmed by the changes when cloud is rolled out? I think I can answer that quickly, just based on my talk. Onboarding, training in advance, making sure that there is feature parity, ensuring that users are not surprised. We want to surprise them positively, but we don't want them to have bad experiences. We want to delight them. So I would advocate for that. 5 minutes to go, 2 more questions. Are there any plans to extend the marketplace app trials, currently at 30 days, to be similar to the cloud migration trial that is offered by Atlassian for the core products with a valid server license? I guess, Mert, I don't know if you can give us some insider info on that.
Yeah, so I have to check with the sales again for this, but what I know, yeah, for high level, these are the add-ons that we partner with external vendors. So these are not really Atlassian's own products or nothing we can really force them to extend a trial. What we can do is during this migration and while we're supporting you, we can talk to each of those vendors, get those licenses extended for you, but we cannot guarantee that since they're not really Atlassian hosted or Atlassian control. Those are external.
Makes sense. Thanks for that. And another question, how can we reduce the impact that the migration will have on the end user in terms of features and the user interface? I suppose similar to one of the previous questions, ensure feature parity as much as possible. And I think Mert alluded to that as well in one of his recent answers, in that there might be apps on the cloud side of things that, although they're not the same product, they basically serve the same purpose. And so you always have options when it comes to migrating onto something that provides feature parity, even though it might not be the exact same product. I don't know, Mert, if you have anything else to add on top of that.
I don't think I have any additions on this. Yeah.
I suppose if you do end up in this unfortunate situation where there really is no solution for you that provides the functionality that you need on cloud, engage a partner, engage Verve, because we can develop a product to suit your needs on cloud. So development is always an option, and you can start something from scratch. And with 3 minutes to go, do we have any other questions? No other questions popping just yet. I've got a question, Matt. When can we expect a dark theme for Jira?
Oh, wow. Tough one. Jira. I don't know. I know internally it's been pinged for a long time. But yeah, we brought it for Ops Genie, and I'm not sure if it's available for status page. But yeah, individually for bringing, we know it's needed. We're working on it.
Okay, I'll keep my fingers crossed. Good stuff. Final call for questions. I think that's all the questions we're going to get today. Again, don't hesitate to reach out. If you have any questions that you didn't get the chance to ask, you know where to reach us. Oh, wait, we have a final question. What is the roadmap for Jira Service Management migration? Are there any plans to enable it using the migration assistant? Very good question. Matt, over to you.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So to start with, this migration can be handled in two ways. So Jira Cloud Migration Assistant, yes, it doesn't support yet Jira Service Management portion. We know that, we're working on it, and there is an item in our public cloud roadmap. You can check it. But there is an alternative way. So instead of using the add-on, you can also go have an export. Jira Site export import tool is also another way for your migrations. The reasons and benefits can be questionable towards, compared to Jira Cloud Migration Assistant, but if you desperately need Jira Service Management tickets, you can have a fully exported environment and get it in cloud with the export tool, export import tool. So the challenge with Jira Service Management, the experience is totally different. That's why it's taking time. It's not only the tickets we need for Jira Service Management. It's about, for example, inside asset management, there's a feature parity still we're dealing with on-prem and cloud. So even though you have the ticket information in Jira Service Management, you may have experienced some burdens in cloud version. That's why, yes, it's available some workarounds now, but it's a very customized, very heavy work. We have to assess in which ITSM process you're doing, what you will be required to do in cloud, and step by step it will be going there. But if you're asking for an add-on that you want to do directly, it's on the roadmap. I think it's planned for next year.
That's really useful to know. And thanks, Mert. And we've just hit 2 p.m., so I think we're going to have to draw the line there. So once again, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Your time is hugely appreciated. Again, if you need any assistance from us, feel free to reach out. You know where to find us. Here are our details. If you want to discuss your migration strategy or challenges, we're here for you. And keep your eyes peeled for our next webinar. The best way to do this is obviously via our website, where you can sign up to our newsletter. So that's it for today, and see you at the next event. Cheers.